like we seen the other day. Okay, so what we are supposed to do whenever we are working in Word, what kind of a documentation is necessary for ETL testing?
The mapping document.
Correct, mapping document. So what kind of an information do we get from the mapping document?
We do have the information about the source tables,
Yeah,
staging tables,
yeah.
and the target tables and their structure, as well as the business, what do I say, logics, like
Business logic.
the
Is
business rules that we need to apply
okay,
while staging.
perfect. So we'll be having the entire information for us to implement the uh,
ETL process
yeah,
or the
ETL
testing.
process. Correct. So
Yeah,
the mapping document will give you the information that is corresponding to, you may have the source, correct?
yeah,
Likewise, you may have staging, okay? And you may have the,
yeah,
or you will call the target,
target.
right? You will call the target,
Yeah,
okay? All right. Now, so the first example that I'm going to concentrate on will not have staging, okay? I will just
oh,
concentrate on the example that will load the data from source to
source to target.
target. Okay.
Yeah,
This example will also have the transformation rules. There are certain transformation rules that are implemented, and this example will also have the transformation rules. That means, yes,
yeah.
you are extracting the data from the source, okay, applying the transformation
Applying the transformation rules and loading the data into target.
and loading the data into the target. Okay. So
Yeah,
loading into the target. This is what we are trying to do today. Okay.
yeah,
We'll understand what we are supposed to do whenever we get the mapping document, what kind of SQL queries that we are supposed to create in order to test this particular functionality.
scenario. Okay,
Okay. All right.
yeah,
Now, any ETL application or any ETL functionality, okay, they may go with a specific tool or they can even create the ETL process with the help of SQL queries as well. I mean the store procedure.
okay. Sir, your voice is not so clear, sir.
So is it? Is it clear now?
Yes.
Okay. So any ETL process or any ETL, any data, in order to create any data warehouse,
Mm-hmm.
there should be an ETL tool which will extract the data, transform the data, and load the data into the target systems.
Yes.
So this ETL tool can be any licensed version, or we can still create the ETL process with the help of stored procedures as well. Okay.
Okay.
For our class, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an ETL tool called as Informatica. Okay. So
Okay.
take the Informatica tool, and with the help of the Informatica tool, I'm going to show you the process of executing the jobs within the Informatica, and then what exactly the tester needs to do in order to test, or in
Test it.
order to what do you say, in order to keep a validation on that particular job, that yes, it is doing what it is supposed to do, it is loading the data perfectly into the target table or not. Okay.
Okay.
So here I have a source system called as EMP table. This is my source table. Okay. And this
Okay.
table, okay, this source table should load the data into EMP underscore TBB. This is my target table. Okay.
Okay.
In between this particular loading, I mean, in between the source and the what is the target, you have a transformation rules. Okay. So
Okay.
extract the data from the EMP table, transform the data, then load the data into the target. So all
Okay.
activity is taken care by the ETL.
ETL.
It extracts, transforms, and loads.
loads.
When I say it is done by the ETL tool, it means that the tool is not
The
an
jobs are,
intelligent tool. The tool itself is not an intelligence. It's not a self-built intelligence, but there should be some
yeah,
work done using the tool, and that work is done by a developer.
developer.
What does the developer do here? A developer will create a job that would extract the data from the source table, I mean the EMP table here, okay, transform
Yeah,
the data and then load the data into the target table, which is EMP underscore TGT table.
okay.
Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
So here, what the developer is going to do, a developer will create the process. A developer will create the process, or you can say job, which in case of ETL is said as a workflow.
Workflows.
Okay, he's going to create a workflow which will internally have a mapping between source and target and also the transformation. Okay,
Okay,
so now this particular workflow, as and when we execute that particular workflow, it should pull the data from the source, load the data into the target table on applying all the transformation logic. So how are we going
okay.
to test these particular workflows? Do we need any separate tool? No, not at all required. So how are we going to test this particular workflows? We are going to test this particular workflows by the SQL queries, or with the help of a SQL queries. We are going to test whether the job done by the developer is behaving as it is supposed to do. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, how are we going to build this particular SQL queries? What is the source for us?
The SQL developer are told
No,
any kind of
no. How are we going to build this particular SQL queries? Yes, you need a database. That is true. Okay.
mhm.
But apart from that, what do you need to build?
We need to, we need the mapping document
Correct. We
to
need the
get the
mapping document.
information.
The same mapping document is referenced by the developer and also by the test engineer. Whenever a
Yeah,
developer references that particular mapping document, he will be creating the workflow. Whenever we test engineers refer to that particular mapping document, we create the SQL queries, and that particular SQL queries will be useful for our testing purpose.
okay.
Okay? All right.
Yeah,
Now, let's look at the mapping document. This is the sample mapping document, a small example that we are targeting in our first
okay.
ETL testing example class. We have seen all the basics, that is done. Now we are targeting at the examples, or targeting on the examples. Okay, so this is the first
Okay.
example. Now what kind of an information do you have from this particular mapping document? Yes, you see, I said a source. So what is my source? EMP. Source is my EMP table.
Yeah,
Okay, and where do I
yeah.
have my source sitting in? My source is sitting in the schema called as
Got
sort.
some, got.
Okay, so within the
Yeah,
database I have a schema called as sort, in which I have the source table sitting in, called as EMP table. Likewise, where is my target? Target is also in the sort schema, but what is the target table name? EMP underscore TG. So I'm pulling the data from one table, I'm loading the data into another table, both are residing in
in
the
the
same
same
schema
schema.
for our first
Yeah,
example.
yeah.
And you see, I have another column called as transformations. So what does this particular transformations give us? What kind of an information do we get from the transformations? Now, when I say straight pull or one-to-one mapping or no transformation, it means that there will not be any kind of change in data associated with that particular column. Meaning, if I have the EMP number as 7839 in the source, okay, the
Yeah,
data should be seen as 7839 in the target, provided that record is entering into the target. Okay,
Okay.
is that clear?
Yeah.
If that record is not
Yes,
entering
sir.
into the target, yes, you will not see that record itself, entire record corresponding to 7839. But if you see that the
Okay.
target is the record is entering into the target, it means that the data
Mm-hmm.
corresponding to that particular column, EMP number column, should not change, should never change. That means
Okay.
it's straightforward
Okay.
or a one-to-one mapping or a no transformation. Okay,
Okay.
it can be said in
Yeah.
different ways at different places, so you need to understand it.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
likewise
Yeah.
ename. If ename corresponding to that particular record is entering into the target, there should not be any change in it. If at all the ename is as Durga in the source, the name should be as Durga in the target. There should not be any change on it. Okay,
Yeah.
likewise job. Okay, if Durga is a manager over there in the source, the same data should enter into the target. It should not change into another word like senior manager or whatever it is. It should be, if it is a manager, it should be as a manager. Okay,
Yes, sir.
also manager, NGR, whoever Durga is reporting to, his ID should never change. Now hire date. See this? Hire date is there is a transformation applied on it. You see some information over there other than the stateful or one-to-one mapping. Correct? You
Mm-hmm.
see some
Yeah.
information. And what is this information saying you? Okay, take the hire date, hmm, subtract it from
Mm-hmm.
this date, I mean the current
This
date.
day. Today.
Okay,
Yeah.
divide it by 365 and round it to 0. So why are we doing this? It means that this particular transformation logic is calculating the experience in terms of years.
Um. Yes. Yeah. Date. It gives
Years.
us a date.
How
Yeah.
many years of
Oh. Okay.
experience a particular
Yeah.
employee has. Okay. If
Okay.
you see this in
Yeah.
your source table, the column hire date specifies that when was this particular employee got hired. Is that okay? But
Yes, sir.
my target table, I am calculating my experience, I am calculating the experience of a particular employee in that particular table of experience of the employees. Okay. Same is the case. The next column is calculating the total salary. Okay, the total salary
Yeah.
is calculated making use of salary and commission columns. So salary and commission together gives me the total salary. And you see that there is an expansion in the transformation logic. And what it says, yes, salary and commission columns are used to get the information. But also check if there are any null values within the salary and commission columns. If at all there are any null values in those particular columns, overwrite it to 0 and calculate the total salary.
Okay.
Okay, right. And last is department number. You don't have any transformation logic. And now if you see this particular mapping document, this commission column is represented in this total salary, and so you don't see any kind of information present here. Is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or sometimes if the columns are together, you may see that these are getting merged into a single column, giving you the transformation
Okay.
information. Is that okay?
Okay.
Clear?
Yes.
So are you clear with the mapping document now? The mapping
Yes,
document
sir.
corresponding to the first example?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, clear. Fine. Now, let's go ahead. What are we supposed to do whenever I get this particular mapping document? Whenever I get the mapping document, the first thing that I'm supposed to do, the first
Create the.
thing that I'm supposed to do is, yes, I have to build my test cases first, correct?
Oh. Yeah.
What are the, I mean, if I have to test a mapping, I need to build up my test cases. What am I going to test as part of this particular functionality, correct?
Okay. Yeah.
Right. The first test case, what do you think the first test case should be? Or what do you think? the mandatory test cases should be, the prerequisite test cases that will be applicable for every ETL testing process. What should be the
So we make
mandatory thing?
yeah we make sure the source tables are in the are already there in the schema given
Correct.
schema.
Correct.
And then if we target, I mean, if there are any staging tables, then we also make sure the staging tables are present in the schema, and then the target tables are
Correct.
also present in the schema.
Yep.
And we also review the a mapping document for accuracy.
Mhm.
Uh, and also we make sure the developer has given us a build using, I mean, that means um, uh, I mean, the developer has executed his workflow or the job that loads the data
That would be the
into,
data validation part, okay? Whenever I talk
yeah,
about the developer, I'll talk it into a data validation part, okay? But the
okay,
prerequisites would be, like you said in the first place, yes, we have to ensure that we have the table called as EMP in the Scott schema or not. And that particular EMP table has got the structure that is defined here. Okay, if at all EMP
yeah,
table has got these columns, yes, we have to check whether EMP number is having the data type of number of 4 or not. Ename has got the data type of worker 2 of 10. Likewise job, likewise MBR, hire date, sal, commission, department number. So indirectly what are we trying to do? Yes, we are checking the existence of the source and its structure. Why we
okay.
are supposed to do this? If, for example, if I don't have that particular EMP table, what would happen?
Uh, when we execute a query, it says the table not exists or something like that. So we get an error message.
It's not about the query. See,
I mean,
assume that,
without a,
okay,
yeah,
assume that I don't have this particular employee table. Okay, and
okay,
I forgot to check whether there is an employee table in the source schema or not. I mean the Scott schema or not. Okay, and I
okay,
started executing the workflow. So when I start executing the workflow, okay, I mean the job
yeah,
that is created, do you think the job will be succeeded?
no,
No, because the main place where the data needs to be pulled is not present.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, had we figured it out this issue in the first place itself, we are not required to execute the workflow. As a result, we could have let the developer know that, boss, there is no Scott schema. I mean the EMP table within the Scott schema. This needs to be fixed immediately. Otherwise, I am blocked in executing the workflow. Is that clear?
okay,
So that will be a
yes, sir,
blocker for us. Without EMP
yeah,
table, I cannot proceed with the entire validation of my job. I don't want to execute all those things. I can say it's a blocker. So your
okay,
first steps will let you know whether you can proceed with the things or not. Is that
yeah,
clear? So whenever
yes, sir,
you get a mapping document, always focus on these things. Ensure that you have your source tables, I mean source information. Either it can be a relational table or a flat files, or a
okay,
non-relational information. Ensure that
okay,
you have all those particular source information in the right place or not. Likewise,
okay,
ensure you have your intermediaries, like it may be your staging. Okay, ensure that they are
yeah,
existing. Likewise, your target, and also ensure that they are as per your mapping document, as per the documentation that is produced to you or not. Okay.
okay,
So this
yeah,
would be your initial process of execution.
okay,
Is that clear?
yes, sir,
Okay. So once this is done, let's say, once I have done with all my validation, I mean all my, what do you say, all my checks of existence of the source and its structure, where's target, structure, then what am I supposed to
mm, we make sure the build is ready.
do? Okay. What else? How will you make sure the build is ready?
We get an email from the developer saying that the build is ready. That means he executed his workflow so that the source data is placed in the target tables or in the data warehouse.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That is how we know the build is ready.
Okay. Cool. Yes, you will come to know that the build is ready as and when you'll get the release notes. Okay, so and so application is ready, so and so functionality is ready for you to test. Okay, that is always there.
Yeah.
But apart from that, you made your initial checks ready. Then what are you supposed
Yeah.
to do? You have to check whether you have the job created by the developer is existing in the corresponding location or not. Is that clear? Right. Yes, I have my source structure, target structure. I have everything
Mhm.
available in my database or in my relational schema or in my non-relational source locations of. Okay.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
in order to pull this particular data from source and load into the target, I need to have the job that is configured by the developer. Correct.
Yes.
Now, developer
Yeah.
will be creating it in his development environment, but the same thing has to be pushed into the QA environment where we are supposed to execute those particular jobs. Is that correct or not?
Yes, sir. Isn't that what the build means?
Sorry.
No.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, making sure that the job is ready, I mean,
Yeah. That
available.
is what. Making sure that the
Okay.
job
Okay.
is available. That is what I'm trying to say. You said in the same way.
Okay.
I'm saying in a different manner. That's it. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Right. So we have to see that yes, I have the corresponding job that needs to be executed so that it pulls the data from the source and loads into the target. Clear?
Okay.
Alright.
Yeah.
So once I have the job ready, what am I supposed to do?
We execute the test case against the job and we make sure the data is valid in the target.
How are you going to make sure that the data is valid?
Um, by executing the queries in the
By executing the
uh,
query. So what kind of a queries do you need to execute?
what kind of
Queries
queries
do
do
you
I
need
need?
to execute?
So I mean, first we check the preliminary um, checks like I mean, the number of columns, the number of records from the source. I mean, all the source data is pulled into the target,
Mm-hmm.
and also there are no duplicate data,
Mm-hmm.
and there is no excess data. I mean, that is what duplicate is, and there is no missing data. Like
Correct.
and also that I mean though there are 100 records in source 1 and 100 records in target, we have to make sure that these 100 are exactly matching with the target 100. What I mean to say is if you have 1 to 100 in source and if you have 100 ones in target, though the number matches, it's not a right pull, I mean right loading. So
Okay. Yeah.
that is the preliminary, and then we write, I mean, we execute the queries for checking the transformation rules.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. So in simple words, what we have to do, we have to ensure that we get the same count of records at the source and the target, correct? I mean, if I have 100
Yeah.
records at the source for that particular job, and if I don't have any kind of elimination of those particular records, I should be able to see all those particular 100 records in my target, correct?
Mhm.
Likewise,
Yeah.
I also needs to ensure, or we also needs to ensure that the data is perfect. When I say data is perfect, whatever the data at the source should be the same as the data in the target, or whatever the data in the target should be same as the incoming data. So both should be in sync. Okay,
Okay.
what we have to do. So in simple words, so in order to complete a particular, in order to say that, okay, we are doing the ETL testing properly, what are we going to do?
Mhm.
Yes, In simple words, we have to do this way. We have to ensure the count of records is one and the same. Count of records and
Mm-hmm.
source and the target is one and the same. And also we have to say the data is valid. When I say data is valid, both source and target has got the same data in it. Okay.
Okay.
So to do this particular data validation, so I'm going to come up with the data validation query. So what do we mean by data validation query? This data validation query is prepared against the source and the target, which will give us the confirmation that the data presented the both the systems is one and the same. So how am I going to
Okay.
prepare my data validation query? Yes, you see this. I have the source
Yeah.
system. Okay, I'll go with the
Yeah.
minus on the source. I'll create a target. I mean, I'll apply a minus between the source and the target.
Mm-hmm.
Union target
Target minus.
source. So this is how I'm going to prepare my data validation query. And this
Okay.
particular data validation query will help us in order to give a confirmation on yes, whether the data is one and the same or not.
Okay.
So the first thing that we need to prepare is, yes, do I need to prepare the target query? Do I need
Do
to
I
prepare the
need
target
to
query? How is the target table loaded with? Or how is the target table getting the data?
after applying the business rules to the
After
source,
applying
we
the
are loading them.
indirectly I can say that as in when I run the job, the target table is loaded with the data, correct?
Yes. Yes.
So this target table is getting the data by the job. Perfect.
Yes.
So how is the target data getting the data? The target, I mean, how is the target table getting the data? The target table is getting the data from the source, correct?
Yes.
And on source,
This is.
you have transformations applied, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So here, in order to create this particular source minus target query, what am I supposed to do? I have to create the source query with transformations, correct?
Yeah.
Because you already have the target table with the transformations, and that is done by
Yes.
the job that is created by the developer. So what am I supposed to do
Yes.
here? Yes, I have the source information on which no transformations are applied directly. So what am I supposed to
Mm-hmm.
do? Yes, I have to create the source query with transformations,
Trans-
and that needs to be evaluated with the target table data. Okay, all right. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's see. How are we going to do that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let me take our mapping. Sorry. Yeah. Let me take our mapping document into consideration. If you see this, yes, what are all the columns that you're getting from the source? EMP number, e-name, job, MGR. Okay. Let me pull that. Select EMP number, e-name, e-name, job, MGR. These are straight pull columns on which we are not required to apply our transformation logic. Correct? Now if you
Yes.
see higher date, yes, there was a transformation given for you. Okay, take this particular transformation logic, apply it here. Okay, so what is this? This is experience. Correct?
Yeah.
Now, then you have another column called as total salary. How is the total salary created? The total salary is nothing but salary plus commission, and also it says that check null values in each column, and if there are any null values, overwrite it to 0. So that means what am I supposed to do?
Is
I have to apply
is
is null of
is now.
salary comma 0 plus is null of commission comma 0. Okay, so this becomes my total salary. Is it
Sir.
clear?
Yes, sir.
Then the last column is department number on which no transformation is applied. It's a straight pull. Done. So where are we extracting this data from? EMP table.
From EM, yeah.
Correct? So what is this query now? This query is nothing but the source query with
Plus transformation.
the source query with transformations. And to what query this query needs to be evaluated with? This query needs to be evaluated with the target table query. Correct?
Yeah.
Right? So minus, we are doing a minus operation. Select, you can say EMP number, e-name, job, NGR, experience, okay, and total salary, okay, department
Create
from EMP underscore TGT. What is this? This is my
target.
target table query, okay, target query. And I am not applying any transformations on the target query because the target query is already applied with the transformations. And how is it applied? It is applied by the
Within
job that
the
is created by the developer. Is that okay?
yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, likewise, what you need to do, you have to make a union of your target query minus your
Minus.
query.
Yeah.
Yes. Minus your source query. Okay. So this is
Yeah.
your data validation query. Now, do you see any filters applying anywhere within the source or your target?
No.
When I say filters, are you restricting any records going from one table to another table? No. Correct?
No. Yeah.
I did not apply any where clause. So when I don't apply any where clause, I'm not restricting the data. Correct?
Yes.
So when
Yeah.
I'm not restricting the data, it means that I need to have the same count of records that are present at the source. Same count of records that are present at the source. I mean, to say that target table should have the same count of records that are present at the source. Indirectly, if
Yeah.
source has 10, target should have 10. Correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Now, yes, why am I applying the minus in two different ways? Why am I going with source minus target, union target minus source? What is the reason behind it?
Because if there is any excess data in either the table, then we find it using the union. I mean, if there is any excess data in the source query, then the first um, um, be, prior to union keyword will get those records, and then we are combining those result set with the below the union um, uh, query
Okay,
of the yeah.
yeah, making sense, but to present in a different manner, the
Mhm.
minus is a set operator which
Mhm.
does the work in this manner. It will check all the records of the top query in below query. I mean,
Yeah.
if top query has got 10 records, it will try to check all those particular 10 records present in the below
Uh,
query or not. Okay? And if it finds any of the records that are not present in the first query of that particular part, it will give only that particular results. It will not give you the results of the below query. I mean the second query of your minus. Making sense?
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
same way here. It will always try to figure out the records of target EMP underscore target in EMP table. And if it finds anything that is not present in the EMP table, then it gives you that. So I need to
Yes.
have both of them union so that I'll not miss the source records as well as the target records which are not present. Making sense?
Yes.
That is why I'm going with
Yes.
union. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. So this kind of query is nothing but called as our data validation query.
Okay.
This is our data validation query. So as and when you get a mapping document, first thing that you have to prepare is, okay, you have to prepare your test cases. Alongside of your test cases, you have to prepare this kind of queries called as your data validation query. And this kind of queries will help you out in evaluating whether you have the valid data in the target table or not, which is being extracted from the source. Okay.
Okay.
Now
Yeah.
this single query is also testing the transformations, isn't it? Did you see this? I'm even testing the transformation. Correct?
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
there is a bad method that is being employed by different people, which is a really a bad method. The reason behind it is, uh, first of all, I'll say what is the method that they are applying with. For example, if a table has got 20 columns, they are writing, I mean, people used to write 20 different queries to evaluate whether the data in the target and the source is one and the same or not. I mean, they are writing the query individually for a single column, which is a bad practice.
Okay. Okay.
The reason is, okay, if it is 20 table, okay, you can put 20 queries. But what if it is a 100 column table? Will you write 100 different queries? It means that you are repeating the same test, exhaustive testing that will take time, that will consume time, which is of no result. All right.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
if you embed everything into one single query and get it evaluated, you'll get the results then and there itself.
Okay.
Okay. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes. Sir.
So we can even refine this particular data validation query as which particular column is not giving the right set of data and why are we getting failures. Even we can do those particular checks with certain, what do you say, certain implementations within our query, which we'll see in the further classes. But this is a simple example. I'm not stressing much on that particular part. Okay.
Okay.
Now, for
Yeah.
example, what do I mean by that part is, yes, I have 6 columns here now, correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
7 columns. Okay, I have 7 columns in source and target now when applied with the transformation. Okay, so
Okay.
the minus query will evaluate on the entire row, correct? If
Yeah.
employee number is 7839 Durga manager and whatever it is, it has to be present the same way in my target query as well, target result
Yeah.
query, correct?
Yeah.
For example, Durga in the top one is not seen as Durga in the bottom one. I mean, in the target, let's say Durga in top one is seen as DURG. A is missing out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
What it does, it will give you the record as an output saying that this is not the record that is present in the target. Correct?
Yeah.
So you have to find out what is the problem in that particular entire record. Correct?
Yeah.
Is it because of EMP number or is it because of e-name or is it because of job or is it because of manager or whatever it is? Or is it because
Okay.
of transformation? You have
Mm-hmm.
to prepare those particular, you have to come up with that particular information. If it is a 100 column, you have to see where is that particular defect coming from. Is that okay?
Oh, okay.
Making sense, right?
Yes, sir.
So
Mm-hmm.
going forward, what we do is we'll create certain kind of query which will give us as what is the data that is not same in between
Equal. Yeah. Yeah.
both the queries. As a result, it has come out as an output. Okay. In
Okay.
fact,
Okay.
whenever I execute this part of the query, it should not give me any results as an output. Simple. I should not get any
Okay.
results as an output. When I don't get any
Yeah.
results as an output, it means that data between the source and target is one and the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. The reason why am I stressing more on this particular data validation query is this is our main main part of our ETL testing. You know, when you create a
Yeah.
data validation query in much perfect and much proper way, you're not required to bother on all other stuff. Using this, you can play with the ETL part. I mean, any kind of ETL functionality. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Cool. So I have created certain examples. Find it out. emp underscore target. So this is the job that is created in order to pull this particular data from the source and load it into the target. emp underscore tgt. Okay, fine.
Okay.
Now, let me talk about the tool. Because you're working on this particular tool, you need to know a minimal information, at least an information that will help you out in executing the jobs.
Okay.
The Informatica client has got four important things. Okay, four components, important components. The first component is your repository. Sorry.
Okay.
The first component is your repository. Repository is a place where you store everything, right? What do you mean by repository? You keep everything secured and safe, correct? You can create your folders, you can assign permissions and everything. So this is basically done by an admin activity, admin guy. Okay, Informatica admin people who will be having the access to the repositories where they create the folders, or even the developers, they create the folders to store all their particular jobs corresponding to that particular functionality in a specific folder, and they assign the rights to the people whom they wanted to share with. Hmm?
Okay.
Okay, so likewise you have D. D is nothing but your designer, which is the place where a developer would be creating the jobs. So how does
Okay.
the job look like? Let me show you that. A simple example. This is nothing but a designer area where you see they have created certain job. You see, this is nothing but called as a mapping. Okay, how
Yeah.
do the source and target are mapped to each other? So this is my source. When you see that arrow going out, it means that it is your source. When you see the arrow coming in, that is nothing but your target. That
Okay.
the records from source is going out and entering into the target. Simple.
Okay.
And whatever the things that you see in between source and target are nothing but your transformation logics that are being applied in order to push the data from source to target. I mean, pushing the data into the target. Okay,
Okay.
and these transformation rules are being implemented based on the mapping document that are shared with that are
Okay.
a particular project. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Right. So this is the place where developer do. So he does all these particular job. Okay. He does his activity here. Once he is done with this, then what he does, once he creates a mapping, he moves on to the workflow manager screen where he would create the complete set of job. Okay. And that
Okay.
particular job is nothing but called as your workflows. Okay, in
Okay.
Informatica, the entire job is nothing but called as a workflow. Okay, so this is your workflow. So this is the workflow that is created for our example. Okay,
Yeah.
you would find all the workflows in the corresponding folder. So here I am focusing on the ETL testing examples. So
Mhm.
all the workflows that are associated with this particular ETL testing examples will be present under this particular workflow tree. Okay, so
Okay.
where do you get this information? Which workflow needs to be executed? You'll have that information within the mapping document. See here, I have the job details. This is my workflow that is supposed to get executed or that is implemented for this particular example. Is that okay?
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So this is the place where I'm going to execute this particular job. So when I execute the job, I need to see the results, correct? I need to see the way the data is loaded, or I need to see how is the job behaving. Is the job succeeded? Is the job failed? Or is the job in progress or in execution? What is happening with the job? I need to see the job stuff, correct?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I also need to see, okay, if the job is getting executed or if the job is getting failed, how am I need to analyze it? Where can I find the
Mhm.
log details and everything? So I need to know that information. And that
Okay.
information can be figured out from, or I mean using the workflow monitor screen. Yeah. Okay. Is that
Okay.
So here,
Yes.
E is for the designer where the developer would work, and W is for your workflow manager where the developer would work. Developer would create the workflow. And here we also work. We test engineers will also work on this because we need to run that particular job when deployed to QA, correct? So
Okay.
we as a QA engineers, we would be working on the workflow manager and
Mm.
workflow
The
monitor. What is monitor useful for? Monitor is useful for figuring out the job status, whether the job succeeded, failed, get the log, see the log, what the log is saying. You'll get all that particular information from this particular option called as monitor.
Okay.
Clear?
Yes, sir.
Alright, so let me go to the database now. Let me check the table. Let me see. So let's start from EMP. Do I have this particular table? Yes. When I see that the query getting executed, when I see the results, it means that yes, I have the data. Correct? As I mean, I have the table. Okay. And also,
Yeah.
I have to see the structure of that particular table. So describe EMP. You'll, you'll get the structure of that particular table. Evaluate
Oh,
structure using your mapping document. Your mapping document has given the structure to you. Correct?
yes.
Evaluate the structure with this particular query output, see whether they are one and the same or not. Okay.
Okay.
Likewise, select start
Thanks.
from
Yeah.
EMP underscore TG. Okay.
Yeah.
Do I have my target table or not? Yes, I have my target table. Okay. Now here I
Okay.
see the data within the target table. Okay. Forget about the data. The reason behind this is I already executed that particular workflow. As a result, I have this particular data.
Okay.
Okay, forget about it. So what I'm trying to do is I'll truncate the table. Okay, the
Okay.
reason why I'm truncating the table is to see our workflow result, whether the workflow is loading the data into the target table or not. Okay, I'm
Oh,
truncating it
okay.
because I already executed this particular job earlier, and that is the reason why you see this. Okay, I truncated it. Now you don't see the data. Okay, I have only the structure.
Okay.
Okay, so you have the data in the source, you don't have the data in the target now. We prepared our things. Okay. Now what you're
Okay.
to do, describe EMP underscore EP. Yes, you are supposed to evaluate this target structure to the things
Mapping document.
mapping document. What is it? What did we call it? You have to evaluate this with your mapping document. Okay, fine.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Right. Now, do we have any data in the target table now?
No.
You are running the job for the first time. Yes, you would have the data in the source, correct? But you will not
Yeah.
have any data in the target. Target table will be empty. Okay?
Yes.
That means this kind of load is nothing but called as initial
Initial
loading.
load.
Loading the data for the first time into the target table is nothing but initial loading. Simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay? Yes. So how do we load this particular data? What are we supposed to do? We are supposed to execute that particular
ETL job.
ETL job. Here, our ETL job is nothing but our workflow.
Workflow.
So how are we going to execute it? Yes, whenever you see the workflow, drag it into your workflow designer. So this is the place where
Oh,
the workflow designer is. Okay.
okay.
Once you drag it, once you see that particular workflow name, here you can see the workflow name which is appearing here within the workflow designer area. So this is the
Okay.
workflow designer area. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see this, right, right click on it and you can see the option called as start workflow. Okay.
Okay.
This is one way
Mm-hmm.
of executing the job. Or you can see the same icon. See the icon here? Okay. You can see the
Yeah.
same icon appearing here. appearing.
Okay.
You can even
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
the workflow from there. Okay, or
Okay.
you can even start the workflow from here directly.
Okay.
Okay, is that clear? Or
Yeah.
you can start the workflow from here. Workflow menu, start workflow.
Okay.
Okay, you have 4 different ways. Whichever the way that you're comfortable with, you can go with it. Okay,
Okay.
so I'm starting the workflow. As and when I start the workflow, what happens for the first time? What happens is I'll get the workflow monitor opened up and which will give you the status. See the status? It is in
Mm.
running status. Correct? Now it
Yeah.
got succeeded. So that means yes, the job that is created by the developer succeeded. Okay, but
Yeah.
we need to check the results, whether the results are getting loaded. I mean, whether the data is loaded into the target table or not. Perfect. All right.
Yes, sir.
So you see the gear icon here.
Yeah.
This gear icon is nothing but called a session. Okay. Click on this particular.
Okay.
Double click on this particular session. You will get the properties of it.
Okay.
Okay. The main things that we need to look at that particular properties is these 4. Sorry, these 5. The below 5. Okay. Source success rows. What does it mean? What is the count of success records that is present at the source? And it says that there are 16 records at the source.
Okay.
Is that correct or not?
We can query the.
Yeah. So I'll just say select star from, because these are minimal records.
Okay.
I have 16 records. Correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
I have 16.
16.
So that means yes, workflow said correct. Good job, workflow. Where is it?
Here, sir, after SQL, all rows fetched 16.
Yeah. So this said correct. Okay. Source
Okay.
failed rows. So what do you mean by this information? This information says, are there any records that failed at the source level itself?
No.
When you say 0, it means no. Correct?
Yeah.
Can we
Yeah.
understand that whenever you see the data coming from the non-relational databases, then you may get the count here. You will see a count here if at all the data failed at the source level. Is that
Okay.
okay? Now, target success rows. It means that what is the count of records that got loaded into your targeting? Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Now, target fail rows. What is the count of records that failed to load into the target?
Yeah.
Okay.
0.
Total transformation errors. What is the count of records that failed at the transformation level? When you are applying the transformation, what is the count of records that failed at that particular level? That gives you that information.
Okay.
Okay, clear? Now,
Yeah.
if you want to see more detailed stats of it, then you
Mm-hmm.
have to go to the session log. You see here, get session log.
Yeah.
ETL tool will present you the log. What does the log give you? The log will give you the information as what has happened with this particular job. How did the job start? How did the job end? What happened in between? You'll have everything defined here within the log. Okay, and the log
Yes.
will always help you in figuring out the errors. For example, if the job failed for some reason, okay, you cannot, I mean, you cannot simply say that the job failed, and you cannot simply log a defect saying that the job failed. But look at the,
Yeah.
what is the reason for the failure of that particular job? Why is the job failed? You can figure out all that particular information here, and you can give that particular information to the developer. Okay,
Okay.
or simply
Yeah.
export this particular log, attach as a copy to that particular defect and send it to the developer saying that yes, the job failed and the log is attached to this. Even the developer
Okay.
will look into that particular log, he will figure out what is the reason behind it.
Okay.
Okay. So log will give you
Yeah.
the stats as this one. See, load summary. What is the summary saying? Requested 16, applied 16, rejected 0, affected 16. Simple. Correct? So
Yeah.
what did we request?
Yeah.
We requested 16 records from the source, and all the 16 records are applied on
Thanks.
the target or within the target. None of them are rejected. So rejected count is 0. How many records are indirectly affected? The total number of records. Simple. Correct?
Okay. Okay.
16 records. As simple as that. So when you go through
So
the log, sorry,
what is applied, sir?
what is
Applied.
applied? Applied in the sense
Yeah.
your transformation is applied on those particular 16 records and loaded into your target. Simple. See, it's nothing but
Okay. Affected after loaded.
yeah, it's nothing.
Okay.
You pulled out 16 records. On the 16
Yeah.
records, you applied your transformations, and none of them
Okay.
are rejected, and all of them are loaded into your target. Simple.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So this is how when you read the log, you will get all those particular all that particular information. See here, the same information is given in your summary. Okay, same
Yeah.
source load summary, target load summary. You got everything. So where are you pulling
Yeah.
the data from? You're pulling the data from SQ underscore EMP. When you say SQ, it's a source qualifier. That means source table. Okay. What is
Okay.
the source table? It is EMP. Correct.
Okay.
It's your
Yeah.
target table. EMP underscore TGT. Okay.
Okay.
Simple. So how is the data pulled? Where is the data loaded? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so this is about the log. Okay, we checked the log, we checked the status of the job. Now what we need to do? Can we purely rely on this particular stats that is given by the job? Can we rely on this? Can we say that, okay, our job is done, our execution is done? Can we say that?
Mm. Yes.
I'll say no. Reason. Okay, if the job is giving you the stats saying that 16 and 16, did that
Mm-hmm.
give you the confirmation over the data?
No. It's just the
Just gave you the
basic.
counts that is loaded from the source and loaded into the target. Did it talk about the data?
No.
There can be a chance that the data may get changed, correct?
Yes.
And in testing, do we go with assumptions?
No.
No. So what we are supposed to do? Yes, we have to
We
go
have
back and look at the
calculated it.
data in the target table, correct? We have to go
Yes.
back, we have to see the data in the target table, see, check whether the data is one and the same. And that is the sole purpose why we have created our data validation query. Yes, we wrote our data validation query, correct?
Yes.
Copy this particular data validation query, okay? Execute it on your database. Okay, so this is the data validation query that we have created. Now, when I execute this particular data validation query, okay, what should
Yes.
be my expectation?
This is no records populate in your result set.
Correct. I should not see any records in my result set. This is what my expectation is. And if I see any data coming as an output, it means that there is something wrong within the transformation logic. Okay, let me execute it. What happened? Is null.
Hmm.
Is null sequence of wrong? One second. So here it should be NVLO.
Okay.
Is null is this one. SQL Server.
Okay.
Not two things, so I'm getting confused. Okay, I'm executing this. Yes, good. that we did not see any records as an output, it means that
Okay.
the data is one and the same. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, whatever the data that I have at the source, I have the same data on the target. Okay, is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now here, question to you, do you want me to re-execute the job? What happens if I re-execute the job?
Oh, we did not execute the job, right?
No,
So
I'm
far,
asking you,
this is the first step
job.
that we are executing.
No, we executed the job, right? We executed the workflow. Workflow is nothing but the job.
Okay.
Is that clear? How did
Yes,
your
sir.
target table get the data? Target table got the
Oh,
data on executing the
okay.
job. Correct.
Okay.
Right. So I executed
Yes.
the job once and I got the data in the target table. Perfect. Done.
Oh,
Now my
yeah. I got the question, sir.
okay. Now my question is, do I need to re-execute the job?
Um, for what?
That's the reason.
Why do you want to execute the job?
Okay. If I re-execute the job, I want to see whether the same records are getting loaded into the target table for another time.
So it depends on the type of the uh, target table.
Yes, point noted, type of the target table. But I also want
Yeah.
to check, okay, I don't have any type defined on my target table. Okay. But what if
Okay.
the job is executed another time? Will
What happened?
will it load the same records again into the target table, making the records as duplicate in it?
I don't think so. I think the first set would be replaced with the second set.
How do you assume?
If you
How do you assume it? Why do you want to assume in case of your testing? Making sense? I'll re-execute the job another time. Making the reason why I'm re-executing the job is I don't want that particular job should load the records into the target table another time, or another set of records should not get loaded into the target table. Meaning I should not see any duplicate entries no matter if I execute that particular job any number of times. Making sense? Because
yes, sir. Every time we run the job, we make sure that we remove the data that that we loaded the previous time.
we should not remove it. Okay, let me put the things much clearer to you. Okay.
Okay. Then we may have to define the type of the target in
Not
order to.
required. Not required in this example. Let me complete it. Okay.
Okay.
See.
Okay.
Okay. Here I don't have any target table defined. Forget about it. That's a valid point, but that is not what I'm trying to focus here. Okay. First thing,
Okay.
before our execution, I have cleared the data because I executed in my previous class example. So I don't want to
Mhm.
carry with the same data, and that is the reason why I cleared the table. So don't bring that
Okay.
particular point into picture. Simple.
Okay. Yeah.
Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Forget about it. So assume that your target table was empty whenever you're loading the data. Perfect?
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yes, we loaded we executed the job and the job loaded the data into the target table. Accept.
Okay.
Okay, done. Now the second thing is I will re-execute the job again, and
Okay.
on re-executing the job, I wanted to see that the job is not loading another copy of same records into the target table. Meaning, what am I testing for? I'm testing for the duplicate records loading into the target by re-executing the same job again. You got the point now?
Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So we verify if there are any records exist in the target, and if there is any record exists with the same data, then we don't load that record into target.
Correct. Point the same way. I mean, if you see the same incoming record present in the target, then you should not get that particular record loaded for another time, because what happens is generally there can be a chance that the incoming data is appended to your target table rather than checking whether that particular record is present in your target table or not. Okay, there
Okay.
will be that particular
Yeah.
process defined. Okay, you may get
Okay.
that particular
Yeah.
process defined where you append the data to the target table instead of checking whether the incoming data is already present in the target table or not.
Okay.
Point clear?
Yes, sir.
Any confusion over this point?
No.
Okay, cool. All right, so what am I trying to do? I'm going to execute that particular job again. Yes, I'll execute the job. Start workflow. And what should the workflow monitor say? What should the monitor
If
say?
this
Job executed.
source
You,
and whether it is success or fail and what is the reason behind the failure, and we
yeah.
get it from the log.
You see the stats now? Yes, in source, job read 16 records. Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
None of the records failed at the source level. Perfect.
Okay. Yeah.
None of the
Target
records
success.
loaded into the target. Perfect.
Yes. Because it
16 records failed
check
loading into the target. Why is it so?
because the it checked the target table with the to match with the incoming records, and if there is a match, then the records were not loaded into the target.
Simple. Point correct. So all these 16 records failed loading into the target table. The reason behind it is, yes, the
There is already a
data is
match in the
already
target.
existing in my target table. So it will not load the duplicate data into it.
Oh,
Clear?
yes, sir.
All right. So will you go with the confirmation of this particular thing? Will you purely rely on this?
Um,
Will you purely
oh,
rely on the stats given in the workflow monitor?
give me 1 second, sir. I'm still thinking.
Okay.
No, because even this says there were 16 records pulled from the source, and there are already the 16 records existed in the target. That's why this job did not load any records into the target. But we really want to see what exact the data in the target uh, is, and we want to make sure the data in the target is as per the expected data. Like, we want to do the data validation. We
Yeah,
still need to
you
do
have
the
to
data
go with the
validation.
data validation. You have to check, re-execute this particular query, see whether you have any records coming as an output or not. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. And also, if you want, you can check the data in your target table. Select star from your emp underscore tgt. You can even check it. So on checking this, see whether you have any excess records other than those particular 16 what we had initially.
Okay. I
Okay.
think
Sorry.
this makes it complete.
Yeah, this makes it complete. So I'm not going with a new set of data loading into the source and testing the target table. Okay. I'm not doing that activity for now. For now, let's keep the example very simple in this manner. Is that okay?
Okay.
Whenever we
Yes, sir.
take the second example, whenever we concentrate on the second example, I will add a pinch to this. I mean, I'll add an extra stuff to the existing process so that you learn the things one by one in a clear fashion. Is that okay?
Oh, okay.
We'll increment the process, not directly learning everything at once.
Okay.
Clear? Any
Yes,
questions
sir.
so far?
So far so good, sir. But is there any, I mean, um, what are the questions that the interviewer may ask me about the Informatica tool? Like, do they ask me anything like on which modules did you work? Something like that. Like, what is the repository? What does the repository do? Or any kind of those questions.
See, when talking about the testing process in any ETL tool, okay, an ETL test
Okay.
should be clear with the concepts. The concepts will help him in testing any ETL functionality. Those things.
Okay.
Okay. Second thing, it can be any ETL tool that can be used within the market. You cannot purely go into the job where you have only Informatica. You cannot
Yes.
restrict yourself to that particular thing. You have to be
Yes.
clear with the stuff. When I say clear with the stuff, you have to be clear with the
The
process.
process.
How do you test? Whenever you are given an ETL functionality, how do you test that particular ETL functionality? What are the areas that you're going to get concentrated with, and what kind of queries that you're going to prepare with? Okay.
Okay.
So when you
Yeah.
say queries, that means you need to have a very good understanding on SQL. Okay.
Okay.
Second,
Yeah.
the next point of your question is, yes, will the interviewer will ask you on questions regarding the tool. Yes, you may expect some questions regarding the tool where, like, what did you do in Informatica? Okay, your
Yeah.
answer would be yes, I used Informatica extensively to run the workflows and check the status of that particular workflows. I used to execute the workflows within the workflow manager, look at the
Mm.
status within the workflow monitor screen, get the log
Okay.
from the session log, analyze the log for any failures, then I'll shoot out an email. Whether if there are any failures, or I'll raise a defect in the log,
Okay.
whatever it is. So you're going to define
Okay.
the process as what you have done corresponding to that particular tool. Okay.
Okay.
By the end of our session, I'll give you certain inputs on the tool itself, like on the tool, like a small highlights on the different kinds of transformations we'll be having within the tool, like source qualifier. What is the reason why we go with source qualifier? What is a expression transformation? What is a router transformation? What is a filter transformation? What is an update strategy transformation? What is a sequence generator? I'll give you some inputs on each and every transformation corresponding to the Informatica.
Okay.
And you cannot, I mean, with that information, you cannot bind yourself only to the Informatica as an ETL tool. You should be
Okay.
flexible enough to work on any ETL tool. Okay.
Okay.
Only
Mm.
thing is, it may take a day for you to learn as how to execute that particular jobs. Okay. Like if I
Okay.
say an SSIS, SSIS, in SSIS you'll have DTSX packages. Okay.
Okay.
So you need to figure out how do you execute those particular SSIS packages. You may have Visual
Okay.
Studio where you're going to execute those particular SSIS packages, or there can be SQL Server agent jobs that are created where you can execute them using your SSMS, I mean Management Studio. So you have certain areas where you're going to execute it. The purpose
Okay.
of the tool is only execution. Are we doing anything other than the execution? Tell me one thing. What did we
Execution
do?
and
What did we do as part of the Informatica now? What did we do as part of the current job? We executed the job and we looked at the stats of it.
mon. Yeah.
Okay. Is the job successful or not? If the job successful, what is its stats? Okay.
Okay.
So test engineer will be having a requirement of these things. Okay, whatever maybe the tool is. Okay, you execute the job, look at the status. Is the job successful or not? Okay, if the job failed, where is the log associated with that particular job? Go to the area where the log is. Look at the log. Figure out the reason why it failed. Is it the reason with the test data, or is the reason with the or within that particular job? I mean, the problem that is created by the job itself. Figure out that information. Put an
Okay.
raise a defect if at all it's a valid one. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So you should be flexible enough to work with any ETL tool.
Yeah, I don't have any questions about the testing process so far, sir. Whatever you explained is so clear and I was able to follow.
Mhm.
But if they ask me any in-depth questions in
Very
any
good.
tool,
About
like
the
SSD or any other tool, then I need to.
No
uh,
problem with it.
perfect so that I can answer all their questions.
No problem with that. You know, when you focus yourself as an ETL test engineer, you have to
Mhm.
focus. You have to showcase yourself that yes, I am perfect with the ETL concepts. You know,
Okay.
this is
Yeah.
where one needs to be good with that. Okay, and
Okay.
learning the process, where to execute the things, and where to look at the log. It's a matter of a day. Hardly takes a day, not more.
Okay.
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 Fine. Or I'll give you another idea. Whenever you're appearing for an interview, let's say
Mhm.
they say that you need to have what do you say? You need to know the what do you say? The place where you execute the jobs in case of SSIS. Just read a blog how to execute the job
Oh, okay.
using SSIS or how to
Yes.
execute the job using the data stage. You'll get the
Okay.
flow where you're going to execute it. Say the flow to them. Okay, I used to execute the jobs in that particular area. I used to execute the jobs in SQL Server agent where I used to execute it and I used to log at the status. I used to look at the history of the job.
Okay.
If the history says successful, then I'll go. If the history says failure, I'll look at the log. Simple.
Okay.
Okay, it doesn't take much time for you to learn all those stuff. So
Okay.
along with the classes, you can even browse that thing. Okay, in Informatica, we
Okay.
are reading the jobs in the workflow manager. Okay,
Okay.
what about the other tools, other ETL tools? Making sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's all.
So, is there any assignment kind of thing that I can practice a little
Yes,
before I?
provided we have to install the things in your machine, you know, that's why we have to be downloaded. Put the
Okay. So
download on.
far, it's 70% on, sir.
Yeah, that.
Download.
So once it is fully downloaded, we have to install everything and then I'll give you the assignments. Assignments would be always there from my end, okay? Don't worry.
Okay.
But if you don't have a medium where you execute, where you do all these activities, then there's no purpose in sending you the assignment.
Okay.
Correct?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll do that on regular basis, okay?
Okay, sir.